So now we're going to go back down on the mats.
We saw Nathan Morgan beat Kyler of Army. So Morgan advances for third place. Kyler of Army, unseeded, is an All-American. He'll be going for fifth.
And now we're looking at 165. This is Moza-Fay of Northern Iowa and Nick Marable of Missouri.
Marable, hometown crowd, excited to see him go for third place. He's tough to score on, very solid on top. That's where he tries to get and is able to with a takedown.
He brings them back in.
Marable, one of 3 Missouri wrestlers coming back in the consolations. They have none in the finals. Northern Iowa, this is their only All-American, Moza-Fay. Northern Iowa out of Cedar Falls, Iowa. Great tradition. Won a national championship in 1950 as Iowa State Teachers College.
Wow, that's right, way back when.
When you think about the number of national championship schools, there aren't many. When Oklahoma State's won 33, 34, Iowa's won 21.
Well, you take the Oklahoma schools and the Iowa schools out of it. I mean, Minnesota, there's very few
Arizona
others.
State.
Arizona State got one in there.
Cornell College in Mount Vernon, Iowa.
Long time ago.
In and then late 1940s in Northern Iowa.
Yeah, it's an exclusive club.
Penn State won one.
Yeah, it was a very exclusive club.
Yes.
Yes. It's not a huge guest list for that dinner, is it? As far as the number of schools concerned. I was going to ask you guys a little bit as we check out the wrestling this morning, get into a little discussion about with Iowa winning this year and for the most part bringing almost everyone back except for Perry next year. Does this look like the start of yet another dynasty for the Hawkeyes? Is this the start of yet the next dynasty for Iowa? Or does teams like Oklahoma State and Iowa State and others, they got to kind of catch up quick, don't they?
I'm not sure it's going to be a dynasty, but certainly, without question, Iowa now puts themselves in a great position for recruiting. They're the national champs. Brands has proven himself now as a head coach. And yes, I'm going to call him a protege of Gable now because he did win his national championship.
Exactly right.
But look out for people like Ohio State. Don't forget Iowa State had that best recruiting class. They're maturing, so they could come back tough. Cornell had 5 fabulous freshmen wrestling this year, and they bring back Lean, and they're going to get Nickerson back. So there's some teams out there that can certainly go for it.
Jeff, what you're saying then, like other sports, more parity in collegiate wrestling now than maybe ever.
It seemed that way, but I don't know. When Iowa's got that feel, when the buzz is back in this arena, things really go for Iowa's way, and we saw it here in St. Louis.
You know, you mentioned yesterday, Tim, about how many great wrestlers come out of the state of Ohio. With Ohio State now coming onto the scene, if the Buckeyes can just keep a lot of those guys home, they can be a real force in this sport.
Well, that's an excellent point, and Tom Ryan's doing just that. And only his second year at Ohio State, having them in second place. One of the things that's going to not only keep them there, but challenge for national championships is the fact that they'll get the best kids out of Ohio. People will want to wrestle for Tom Ryan. Well, guess where Tom Ryan wrestled and who he wrestled for? He wrestled for Iowa and wrestled for Dan Gable. And so he knows, you know, he's got the same kind of attitude and desires as Tom Brands. We see Nick Marable here ahead 4-2 and getting that takedown right there. His third takedown in this match early in the second period. But Missouri, him being one of 3 Missouri wrestlers in the consolation, it's a disappointment to the crowd. Good contingency from Missouri here in St. Louis that they don't have someone in the championship, but it'll be back here next year. St. Louis is a great place to have the NCAAs, Dave.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I mean, you know, St. Louis has been a terrific home, and I think if you go out on the street and you talk to the average wrestling fan, I don't think you're going to get a nay vote amongst anybody about coming to St. Louis and making this a permanent home for this national championship.
Everything is in walking distance. Union Station, all the eateries, things to do, lots of room outside for fanfare. It's warmer weather, so you don't have to deal with snowstorms and such. And it's centrally located in the U.S., so it's easy to get to. So there's all the right reasons to keep it here. But I did like the idea of moving it around. That way everybody gets to see the big dance.
So you want to keep it moving?
Not necessarily. I like it here, too. But in the end, I'm telling you, I did like it. It's fun to go out and see the different areas of the country and let those young wrestlers aspire to becoming great.
Trying to pin you down is like trying to pin down a political candidate.
I didn't get pinned much in my career.
Moza-Fay not giving up at all. In on a single, trying to accomplish his first takedown here for the Panther from UNI. If he does, he'd be right back in this match. There's 25 seconds left in the second period, down 6-3 on the strength of 3 takedowns by Marable. One of the things about being in St. Louis again, too, is the Missouri program and the job Brian Smith has done at Missouri has brought it's a big difference between 2000 when we were first here, 1999-2000, and now, because Missouri's a force in the top 10 or 12, and they bring a nice group of fans. And so I guess the point is, if it got to the point where they were contending for the national championship, it may be considered unfair advantage sometime in the future.
Well, maybe so. Maybe so.
3, 2, 1.
Well, we've been asking these guys a lot of questions. If you have any questions for Tim Johnson or Jeff Blatnick, here's how you do it. You just log on to ESPNU.com and then ask either one of these guys any questions you have about the NCAA Wrestling Championships, and we'll try to get an answer for you on the air. If, by the way, you don't have ESPNU, well, log on to that website, and they'll let you know how to figure out how to get ESPNU. You'll type in your zip code at the top of the page, and you can also call your local cable operator or satellite provider.
See, Moza-Fay needs to cut off here. He's in on head outside single, but Marable doing a nice job of staying heavy on the shoulder. Look at that. He's able to break away.
Stretched him out and got away, but that was a beautiful move by Fay. A switch just as he hit the mat when Marable was returning him. Very slick, but Marable too strong. Great time.
Tim, I want to go back to what you were saying about how so many of the coaches today have either an Iowa or an Oklahoma State influence, it seems. And I was thinking back to the earlier days of college basketball, where so many coaches either came from Henry Iba of Oklahoma State or Fog Allen of Kansas. I mean, Dean Smith was a disciple of Fog Allen. Adolph Rupp was a disciple of Fog Allen. You know, you look at the coaching trees of those two gentlemen alone, it's probably accounts for 70% of the coaches today. And I think the same can be said in the sport of wrestling when you go back to the dynasties of both Iowa and Oklahoma State. A lot of the coaches today come from one of those trees.
Yeah, that's right. And most recently, the tree has the trunk is Dan Gable. More of the coaches that are out there. John Smith is just young enough that his guys haven't got out there, you know, but it is truly, here's Brian Smith, a wonderful job that he has done at Missouri. He was a Michigan State wrestler and kind of came out on his own, was at Cornell for a while, and then came out to the Heartland and has done a wonderful job in Columbia, Missouri. Look at that double, freight train double.
Take your time.
You know, for him getting Ben Askren, that kind of put him on the map.
That certainly was a big boost for the Missouri program to have probably the outstanding wrestler in the country in your room constantly, and he's there now helping. And that was what my point would be, is so many of these athletes, when they're done with school, they all can't be assistant coaches. So they travel out, and the best thing you can do is bring a champ into your room to work out with your young wrestlers and help develop them, make them tougher, pass on the experience.
This will be a win for Marable. They'll add the riding time, makes it 7-4, the final score. So he'll move on to the third place match. So Nick Marable moves on to that third place match. When we come back here to St. Louis on the Scott Trade Center, we'll update you on where we stand with what's happened so far this morning in the medal round.
6 of the nation's top teams are on ESPNU.
Scores!
At 2, Duke takes on